Set. It's too loud. Call this meeting to order at 4:36 p.m. We're going to do roll call first. Vice President Stockman, here. Chief of Staff Sanders.
Present.
Chair Newby, here. Chair France.
Here.
Chair Brown.
Here.
Chair Story. Here. Office Manager Peralta.
Here.
Senator Johnson.
Here.
Senator Sukup.
Here.
Senator Bortz.
Here.
Senator Haynes.
Here.
Senator Tapa. Here. Senator Shakar.
Here.
Senator Stout. Senator Tibbetts. Senator Hennick. Senator Annenberger. Here. Senator Rath.
Here.
Senator Martin.
Here.
Vice Johnson.
Here.
Moving on to approval of the agenda. You can see we have only a few items today. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Can you move to approve the agenda? Is there a second? Is there a second from one person? Second by Senator Shakar. Everyone in favor of approving the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Objections? Abstentions? Seeing none, agenda approved as written. Approval of minutes. Can't really see it properly here because of the screen size, but are there any amendments to the minutes? Chair Brown? Is there a second? Second by Senator Bortz. Is there dissent to approve the minutes? Seeing none, minutes approved as written. Moving on to public hearing. This is the section where anyone from the gallery can speak to any student concerns or any other concerns that they would like to address the Senate Assembly for. So are there any public hearing? We do have Citizens Climate Lobby. Would you please introduce yourself to the Senate Assembly and you have the floor.
My name is Linda Kingery. I'm a volunteer with Citizens Climate Lobby. My members this year.
Will Shippen, I'm a senior here.
Is this about a 3 or 4 minute deal? Just to check.
Take your time. We don't have a lot on our agenda.
Okay. So Citizens Climate Lobby is an all volunteer organization. There are actually, I don't know, 10, I think there's about 14 or 16 paid staff, but there are about 92,000 members across the U.S. and Canada. Most of it in the U.S. There's also a presence in, I think, about 14 other countries now. Citizens Climate Lobby is a nonpartisan organization that builds political will for action on climate. And in the U.S., our focus is to pass federal legislation that puts a price on carbon and uses a mechanism, a carbon fee and dividend, to provide a price signal all through the economy so that we start to reduce our climate or our greenhouse gas emissions. And there's an economic incentive for that to happen. The and dividend part of that, carbon fee is the first part, and that's imposed at the, wherever that, most of this is carbon fuels, so that's sort of wherever those carbon fuels enter our economy. The dividend part is a distribution of all of those funds that are pooled together and split equally back to all households, all residents of the United States. So every adult gets an equal share, children get a half a share. And that, by returning that to households, that really eliminates the impact, negative effects this would have on lower income households. The modeling that has been done by a company called REMI, Regional Economic Modeling Incorporated, shows that this, for about the 0 to 50 percentile of the income distribution, that dividend takes care of the incremental cost of adding that carbon fee. So the way Citizens Climate Lobby works on this effort is by meeting with members of Congress. In June, about 1,500 or 1,600 people will show up in Washington, D.C. They will meet with every member in the House of Representatives, meet with their office, quite often meet face-to-face with the representative and with every office of the senators. We also get information to our members of Congress by writing letters. I would invite you to use this postcard to write a letter. I'd like to, if you have time to do that while I'm talking or during this conversation, I will take those, and those will be hand-delivered to during those meetings that I told you about with every member of Congress in June. We also do it by writing letters to the editor, making sure that that climate change as a problem and climate change solutions and this expectation for action on climate is expressed in public media. We do outreach events. We also look for leadership letters, and endorsements. So another thing that the Student Senate might consider is considering a resolution that would, as a group, speaking for the student body of VSU, urge our political leaders to take action on climate. And one bit of good news in this, like it's possible to feel like this is a really big problem that it's hard to move. But in the House of Representatives today, there are 72 members of the House, 36 members are Republicans and 36 Democratic members who are together part of the Climate Solutions Caucus in the House of Representatives. And the way that people can join that Climate Solutions Caucus is by one Republican and one Democrat joining as a pair. So I think that's a real good way to sort of emphasize the need for a nonpartisan solution. And this market-based signal, this carbon fee and dividend, is really gaining some traction. Student groups across the country are endorsing solutions like this. You can look up, I'm sure it's a hashtag, it's something like Students for Carbon Fee and Dividend, or for like the number 4 CFD. And you'd like some more information. Do you have any questions for me?
Yes, I'm sure there'll be questions. So first of all, thank you for coming today and talking to us.
And I should say thank you to the mayor who met at the city council and helped to get this on the agenda.
That's amazing. We appreciate you coming here, and obviously Bemidji is a very sustainability-driven school, and we as the voice of the students, we support all those initiatives as well. So are there any questions for Linda? Chief Sanders?
With the dividends that you're talking about that would cover the cost of the carbon fee, is that a fee that each household will have to come up with first and then they will get reimbursed? Or is it kind of, okay, well, we know that you are at this income line and therefore what we're going to be doing is not having you pay in, but what we're going to be doing is we're going to be setting aside this dividend money that we'll pay for you.
Right.
So how does that work?
So this is a proposal that's being talked about, but there's not a bill, introduced. But as I mentioned, the fee is actually paid when that carbon fuel enters the economy. So that's the mining company or the oil company that's bringing oil or coal, to the market. It's also port of entry. So if fuel arrives on our shores, that's where that fee is paid. So it's paid by the fossil fuel industry. Or in the case of some of the greenhouse gases that are manufactured, they would be paid at the facility that manufactures those. So those costs will get into the, will show up. The obvious places are like at the gas pump or on your electrical bill. So that's where we'll see here, feel the cost. The dividends the proposal is to have those dividends paid monthly so that there isn't a big accrual of expense. And that would be done as either for very few people, that would come as a paper check. For most people, that would come as an electronic deposit. The modeling shows that process maybe takes a little bigger percentage early on because there's much fewer dollars in it. This is a fee that the price keeps increasing year after year. So, by the third year or fourth year, it's less than 1% or around 1% of the total cost in that sort of administrative. There's a really great little video on citizensclimatelaw.org. There's a whole bunch of information there, including about a 3-minute video about how the dividend works.
The speakers list, I got Senator Rapp, followed by Senator Suka.
I was just curious on how we could learn more about it, but you said
Definitely Citizens Climate Lobby. And we have a local chapter, and we meet once a month. We have a little sign-up sheet. We're going to use a line of paper we can send around. If you want to get on if you want to hear about what we're doing as a chapter, put your name and your email and your phone number on there, please.
Senator Suka.
Oh, just out of curiosity, I come from a farming town, so
Yes.
how would this not affect the big farms where, they have, barns and barns and barns and barns, but for the smaller family operated, how would this really affect their livelihood because they can't live without the fuel or any of that they use?
So so in the near term, the answer is that price, since it applies to everyone through the whole economy, the price that's required for commodities or the things that they sell, the price sort of scales with the problem or scales with the population all at the same time. Surely, in order to really solve the climate problem, we need carbon emissions and other greenhouse gas emissions to go down, right? So this also incentivizes farmers and other people to think about energy efficient ways to do crop production, other things. Agriculture is one of the places where this problem really needs to get tackled, but it's really difficult, right? I just met this afternoon with Leroy Stumpf, who works for Colin Pearson, my representative. Some of you are representative. Actually, not my representative, a representative for most of the area that I work in. So I would expect, I think that part of the solution will be that the innovation happens. The other part of the solution is that we really need a farm bill that recognizes action on climate as a really important part of agriculture. There's also a real opportunity on the agriculture side, and that is that carbon sequestered in woody plant material or in soil carbon, that's a really safe place to put carbon instead of in the atmosphere.
Any other questions? No? Thank you, Linda.
Thank you so much. Pass it down this way. Oh, you know what? I should have said, I really need your names on the other side. I need, like Amanda did with her name, if you could put your address so I make sure it's to the right person. Do you want to read in yours?
If you would like, maybe just Senator Johnson, maybe just take the whole pack and then pass the one that's not yours down.
Yeah. Maybe just take the whole pack and like pass it down. Just take yours.
Find yours now.
Keep passing it.
Down.
Oh, this way.
Maybe make sure it's to the right number.
Yeah.
Because we're on the right lines.
All right. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you very much.
We're going to be moving on. We're still in public hearing, so are there any public hearings? Seeing none, moving on to new business. First new business item today is the Senate Bill 1804. One moment. It's the SB 1804, moved by Chief of Staff Sanders, seconded by Chair Newby. I would ask the authors of the bill to come in front of the floor and address the Senate Assembly. Complete the first reading of the bill, please.
Okay, so Bill SB 1804, establishing a technology fee advisory committee. This is kind of talking about going about what was presented to us last meeting. So, whereas the Bemidji State University Student Association, BSUSA Student Senate is the official voice of the students, and whereas Bemidji State University charges a technology fee to every student regardless of their online or on-campus student status, and whereas Minnesota State System Procedure 5.11.1 Part 5, Subpart H, Clause 2 states, a technology fee advisory committee shall exist for each college or university. majority of the committee members shall be students. The Campus Student Association shall appoint the student members of the Technology Fee Advisory Committee. Prior to making recommendations to the college or university president, the Technology Fee Advisory Committee will present the recommendations to the Campus Student Association or student associations for the advice and recommendation. The campus student associations and the institution president or designee shall jointly determine a schedule for the Technology Fee Advisory Committee to ensure that the plan and budget for all the technology fee will be completed for action prior to the end of the spring semester. The college or university shall provide the necessary background materials in advance to the Technology Fee Advisory Committee in accordance with the System Procedures 2.3.1 Part 2 Subpart B. And whereas Minnesota State System Procedures 2.3.1 lays out the importance of the student involvement in the decision making.
Therefore, be it resolved, Bemidji State University Student Association, BSUSA, Student Senate recommends that Bemidji State University establish a Technology Fee Advisory Committee consisting of at least 3 student members to present the annual technology fee amount and budget to the BSUSA Student Senate for input and endorsement before sending the recommendations to the university president or his or her designee. Therefore, be it further resolved, BSUSA Student Senate recommends Bemidji State University establish a structure, a set of guidelines, and charges for the Technology Fee Advisory Committee in consultation with the BSUSA Student Senate. Under said guidelines, BSUSA Student Senate shall have the authority to appoint all the student members serving in the committee as stated in the Minnesota State System Procedure 5.11.1 Part 5 Subpart H Clause 2.
On your motion, Senator Chair Newby and Senator Sanders, do you have anything to add?
Well, again, this is just making sure that we have a policy in place to have this advisory committee to be able to actually have a say as students in the fee allocation for technology. And that's something that was brought to us last meeting, and we felt like this should be put in place.
Great. Since this was actually brought to us by Rob Carruthers, I would yield to Rob in the gallery if he has something to add or any comments related to the bill that was presented.
I don't have too much to add, but thank you for taking this on. I look forward to working with all of you on this, and I look forward to hearing your opinions on the student perspective on how to use technology fees. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Rob. Are there any questions on the bill? Senator Enberger?
So since this would be establishing a new committee, would that mean there would be another committee chair? And if so, where would the funds be paying that committee chair?
That is a very valid question, and we would not be establishing a new committee chair within Student Senate. It would be its own entity where we would appoint the students that are actually in the committee. Therefore, we don't need to have any funds for allocation for stipends.
Yeah, so it's, my understanding is it's not going to be a Student Senate committee, it's going to be a university committee where we would have student representation.
Similar to like the textbook affordability committee that was created a little bit ago.
Senator Suka.
So then I have a question on the wording. It says student senate shall have the ability to appoint all the student members serving on the committee. So then we still have control over who gets to it. So then they have to like step back how we did it earlier. They like apply, but we approve. Is that how this is going to work?
So yeah, I can answer that question. Basically, in every other university committee, there's the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, there's Bookstore Advisory Committee, there's a number of committees, the Calendar Committee, and so on and so forth, where we have to provide student representatives, and Student Senate usually appoints those students. So does not mean that they have to be student senators, they can be regular students as well. We are just in charge of because we represent the student body, we will be in charge of finding those student representatives and appointing them to these committees. And this is one of those committees. Senator Hennig.
So what is the current process on how the technology fee is advertised?
Well, if I could yield to the gallery for
What's the
that.
question?
How is like the now current fee for this forward? What be done now, I guess?
There has not been student input on it at this point. We've sort of just continued the use of funds as it's been in the past. So last meeting, I sort of presented on that, showed where those funds were going. It's pretty much been on autopilot to that point. So we're looking forward to input on this. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Can I follow up with one other quick question?
Yeah.
I noticed the language here, it says it's needed to be done by end of spring semester.
Yes.
So what is the plan for the establishment of this moving forward? Obviously, we're kind of, I think there's not much more.
I think it says, in the system policy, it says that every year the committee shall complete all the fee structure and everything by the end of spring, because we need to prepare the new budget for the following year.
Right.
That's what it's stating. I don't think it's stating that it's talking about this committee in particular. Our understanding is that if there's no committee at the moment, we will try to create one, and as soon as it gets created, we'll have student representation.
For the following year.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be possible for us to have it functional this semester.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Senator Rapp.
Will the students on the community coming just from Senate or from just in general from the Bemidji State?
From the Bemidji State in general. And I'll open it up for everyone to be on this university committee if they wish for appointment.
Senator Shuko.
This is a question I don't know if you can answer. So does the technology fee cover all of the technology? So like I know it's a weird question, but like the projectors in this room, are they covered by the technology fee, or are they technically covered by the business department's own budget?
If we look back at the minutes from last meeting, the 9 points that were presented to us is the technology rooms, kind of what you're pointing at, is covered underneath the technology fee. So, that answers your question?
Senator Shakar.
I had a question. I like how it says like the majority of the committee would be students from BSU. What would the other members consist of? Faculty?
They would, obviously, there would be representatives from the IT department who have the most knowledge about the use of those funds, and possibly the CIO of the university and any other administrator who's appropriate for the community.
So what we're hoping with this is actually to create a policy to put in place so that students are going to become involved with kind of the committee that's already formed, so that the student input can be given to IT faculty and so forth.
So, if I may add, if we want the majority to be students, if you scroll up, the only recommendation that I would have to change is the consisting of 3 students, maybe upping that to 5, because 3 students, I don't think is sufficient.
And I understand that. And then if we actually look at the wording of at least 3 students. So a bare minimum of 3, so having we can always add more. If I may ask, how many people are on the committee at the moment?
There's no committee.
Okay, so with the technology to actually have the applications.
Essentially in the IT department.
Okay,
I mean, 4 or 5, 6.
so it'd be almost half would be students.
Yeah, and I believe one concern is whenever we try to find student representatives for these committees, it's hard to find enough students because obviously there's schedule conflicts and all that stuff. So 3 is a good number, but again, it says at least, so we can always keep adding. And if we think that there's 3 students and 7 non-student members, then we can always add 4 or 5 more students. Chair Brown.
So like the students, how would they get on this committee? Like they have to be appointed to it exactly, like how do they, are we like gonna release this information for students to know, or is it just?
Of course, we've released information for students to know. And so what they would do is they come and they talk to the student senate body, say that they are interested in it, why they're interested in it, and timeframes that they'd be able to dedicate and so forth.
Just so that like.
Yes, yes. That's our hope.
Senator Boards.
Back to that, so would they have to be voted on to be in this committee, or is it just like tell us and then they can just be on the committee?
It's essentially when it says appointed by student senate, you're actually voting on the member. And I don't remember if you guys, if you were there, Senator Boards, you probably were. We had a student come to present to us about her profile, her joining the Environmental Advisory Committee, and we approved the student. It's going to be a similar process. It could either be a student that we find, or a student senator who volunteers, or a student who's willingly volunteering to participate, and we would just approve the student. Any other questions?
So in perspective of time, if everyone's okay with this, I talked with Chris a little bit about it. We're going to motion or move to waive the second reading in consideration of time to the end of the school year and consideration of next week's last meeting. So we're going to move to waive the second reading.
Chair Newby moves to waive the second reading. Is there a second? Seconded by Senator Hennick. Discussion on the motion. Chair Newby.
Yeah, again, consideration of time. Next week's last week of school. We have a lighter agenda next week in lieu of reading day. So we would like to get this passed under this administration, under this year, which is kind of why we decided to wait the second reading.
Great. Any other discussion? Right, everyone, is there a dissent to waive the second reading? Seeing none, the second reading is waived. So we can now have further discussion on the bill, or we can move on to voting. Any other further discussion? Chair Sawyer?
I'd like to move to vote.
Okay, Chair Sawyer calls to question. There's seconded by Senator Anneberger. Is there dissent to call the question? Seeing none, call the question passes. We will now be passing out the ballots. We got the votes in. It's 15 yes and 1 abstain, which means 15 yes and no opposition. Bill passes. So we're going to move on to our next agenda item, which is the strategic planning document. Just because it involves using the keyboard, I'm going to try to make it work. So 1 minute recess. Yeah. What? The chair can decide everything.
What rules are you going to follow?
Live stream is on. You want to appeal the chair's decision? Oh. You got it. You got turned on. We're back in session. Unfortunately, the keyboard wouldn't work, so I'll have to control it from here. So as you all know, we started working on the strategic plan for the next 3 years in the beginning of the year. We took student senator inputs, cabinet inputs, and then cabinet from last semester kind of compiled a lot of those inputs and compiled it into a shorter version. Then I worked on it over the couple of weeks. It was up on the OneDrive for anybody's input until the technology changed. It was up there the whole time. And we received some updates throughout that time too. So this is a compiled version of all those and a compressed version, I should say. So we defined, and by the way, so this is not finalized. This is just a PowerPoint of that. The final version would be an actual PDF with a lot more graphics so that, like, you know, it looks good and stuff like that. So feel free to, as we discuss this, feel free to stop me. And if you want to add anything, if you have some questions, please feel free to mention it. We can do all the editing right here, right now, because we have time today, and finish it up and get it approved today by the Senate and finalize our strategic plan for the next 3 years. And again, one thing I want you to keep in mind is that whatever we finalize today, next year, the next administration can obviously add more things. It's not a concrete thing that people have to follow for 3 years. It's just a way of us providing direction for the next leadership. All right, so Student Senate Strategic Plan 2018 to 2020. First is our mission. So we described our mission to be BSUSA Student Senate is the official voice of the Student Senate of the students at Bemidji State University, which represents the interests of the student body through initiatives that enrich the quality of student life. Our goal is to inspire and prepare the students of BSU to become confident global leaders of tomorrow. Next slide is the vision. To be a recognized and engaged governing body that serves as a valuable resource to the students, the university, and the community. We strive to be an influential part of Bemidji State University and use our influence for the good of the students and organizations. We aim to become a statewide model as one of the leading student governments in the state of Minnesota. Values. Our values serve as the core of our ethical and fiduciary responsibilities and are demonstrated through our work, words, and actions. We identify BSUSA Student Senate as the fiduciary and the student body as the beneficiary to whom we owe the following: dedication, integrity, and transparency, attention, communication, and cooperation, enhancing diversity and ensuring inclusion and equity, promoting and protecting student rights, creating opportunities, delivering innovative solutions that enhance student experience. So these are our mission, vision, and values. Chief Staff Sanders.
So with the vision, is that something that was, came up, that was worded last semester at the beginning? My concern is to be recognized. Are we not already recognized? As
To be
government?
recognized and engaged. Well, I guess, as far as I remember, the way we compiled it is we had a lot of suggestions, and then we highlighted the words that we liked, and then create a sentence out of it. That's how we made our mission and vision. So I think when it says to be recognized, it means the fact that students themselves recognize us, not only by default, but by choice. Is there anything that you guys want to change? Okay. So any comment, Senator Haynes?
There should be a comment after the university.
Okay. No, this is helpful because if we're gonna create it into a PDF document and like make it available for everyone, we shouldn't have grammatical errors. Senator Suko.
Oh. This is something I don't know the question to. I don't know if state in the last part of that should be capitalized or not.
It should be, because when you're saying state of Pennsylvania, state of Minnesota, then you're actually representing the actual, I don't know how to.
It's a proper noun.
Yeah. It's kind of like United States of America, like it's the whole nation. Chief of Staff Sanders.
Through some small discussion here, could we possibly change to be recognized instead of recognized to be cohesive and to be a cohesive and engaged governing body?
There you go. Any more additions, changes, comments on the mission, vision, values? Okay. Moving on. Major areas of concern across campus. So there were a lot of input that we got from student senators. There were inputs that were like 5 lines, like 5 sentences, 3 sentences, some more like paragraphs. We kind of went through all of them and tried to explain or address those issues in simple words or from a broader perspective. So let's say there was a concern about some hate symbols and things like that in the tunnels. And so we thought about it from a broader perspective of inclusion and equity. So, first is inclusion and equity affairs, quality of food in the dining services, lack of promotion of available resources and campus services for students. This is referring to the fact that a lot of students don't know that these services are available or these resources are available, they're not promoted enough and stuff like that. Student involvement and lack of incentives, a lack of school spirit, which may result in poor retention and enrollment rates, campus safety and student perception of public safety. This is, yeah, Senator Suko.
In the first one, in equity, or in inclusion and equity affairs, can we include diversity in that?
We can. Originally, it was diversity, inclusion, and equity affairs. But then we talked about, as far as I remember, we talked about when we're saying areas of concern, is diversity a concern or lack of diversity is a concern? You see the wording difference? Senator Haynes.
With that mindset, your second point kind of is weird because if we're not concerned about the quality, we're concerned about the lack of quality.
I guess we are concerned about what kind of quality it is at the moment. Yes or no?
Doesn't the same kind of apply to the word diversity?
It could go both ways. The reason we don't have diversity over there is because people at that time thought that it would make sense. But if this body thinks that it would make more sense to have diversity, we can have diversity. Senator Suko.
To which, how do you fix that possibly would be inclusion, equity affairs, and lack of diversity as a concern. Because then it's, the concern is inclusion, the concern is equity affairs, and the concern is lack of diversity. If you want to.
Could be. I would hear the inputs before we edit anything. I think that'd be a good way to move forward. Chief of Staff Sanders.
So to that point, what I would like to ask is how do we as a student body increase diversity? That would be something that, you know, enrollment would have to be. These things, inclusion and equity affairs, those are things that we have control over as a student senate body. We don't really have control over who comes here, you know, and how diverse they are. And that's why I believe we should not have diversity in there, because those are the two things that we can control. We would like to promote diversity and promote the inclusion of diversity. But with that, I feel like these two things actually are points we can control.
Senator Shekar, followed by Chair Brown.
Yeah, with that, inclusion and equity affairs, I completely agree. Chief Staff Sanders, because we have a diverse campus. Like for the past 3 years I've been here, we have seen a lot of diversity, but I strongly believe we need a lot more work on inclusion and equity. So leaving out diversity, because we don't have a say on how many international students, how many universities are coming into our campus, but we do have a say on that, and it's okay.
Chair Brown.
Something that Chief of Staff Sanders said was the promotion of diversity. I don't know if we want to, that just be diversity or the lack thereof.
I agree with that. And if you wait in the next few slides, we do have that. This is just talking about major areas of concern. So I should have said this in the beginning, actually, it's my bad. So the way we set up the strategic plan is we set major areas of concerns across campus. Then we talked about concerns of students in their daily lives. And then we talked about, we did a SWOT analysis, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threat. We called it SWOT because we didn't want to say threat, we called it barriers. So based on that, we came up with major areas of concern, major concerns of students' daily lives. Then we came up with our major goals. There are 6 broad goals that you'll see that we have. Under those six broad goals are again divided into smaller goals that the future leadership of Senate can follow. So Any other comments on the first item, inclusion and equity affairs? Senator Chicago?
Can we add more issues to this list?
Yeah.
I think parking is a huge issue on campus right now. It's gonna be here for however long I stay here, so I wanna work on parking for sure. Like off-campus parking, because most students at Coffee end up walking a couple of blocks every morning just because they can't find parking across campus. That's the whole Banksburg parking lot empty every day.
Would you consider adding that to the second list, the major concerns in students' daily lives? Advisor Johnson.
Well, I was just gonna suggest, maybe since not everybody's seen the document, we could kind of do an overview first and then come back, so people could take note of concerns that they have and then come back to them. Because I feel like it needs more of an umbrella, more context would be helpful.
I think that's an excellent idea. Thank you, Advisor Johnson. So, moving on, inclusion and equity affairs, quality of food in the dining services, lack of promotion of available resources and campus services for students, student involvement and lack of incentives, lack of school spirit, which may result in poor retention and enrollment rates, campus safety and student perception of public safety, major concerns in students' daily lives, food insecurity, lack of public transportation or some sort of university transit, textbook affordability, mental health issues and lack of support, affordability of sexual health and feminine hygiene products, microaggressions due to lack of education related to inclusion, unreported sexual violence incidents, exposure to underage drinking, partly due to lack of weekend activities on campus. Then we have internal concerns within Student Senate. First is the training and recruitment initiatives for new senators, participation and accountability, professionalism in meetings and at Student Senate events, student outreach and input for legislations, disconnect between student organizations and Student Senate, promotion of Student Senate initiatives across campus. And here are the 6 broad goals. First is ensure equity and inclusion. Second, improve student involvement. Third, address student wellness. Just so that you have an idea of what they're talking about, ensuring equity and inclusion, it talks about including all the minority groups and everything that has to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion. Improving student involvement, pretty general. It also covers the disconnect between student body and student senate, building that connection with student organizations and all that. Addressing student wellness. Student wellness also covers mental health as well as sexual health and any other health related issues, including food insecurity and all that good stuff. Not good stuff, my bad. Unfortunate things. Establish a student transit or alternative transportation program. Ensure affordability, pretty self-explanatory. Bridge the gap between the student senate and student body. So the broad goals are divided into smaller goals on how to achieve the broad goal, basically. Maintain strong relationship with the diversity groups such as International Student Organization, Phoenix Club, Council of Indian Students, lifestyle educators, and others. Provide support to the CDEI and its programming activities. Identify and address international student concerns and concerns of all other marginalized groups on campus. Create a prayer room / room for spiritual practices on campus. Work on creating more gender neutral facilities on campus. Diversity through exposure. This includes other subsections such as host or support events that promote and celebrate cultures of underrepresented groups at BSU, Create campaigns that promote the student body's values of equity and inclusion. Get the student body involved in raising awareness about mental health, racism, and any sort of exclusion against minority groups. I would advise taking notes of whatever you want to change or anything that you want to add. You can also feel free to stop me if you have questions. Senator Sukup.
My question goes back again a couple slides, just as that one, right there.
This one?
Yes. Are those rankings or there's?
They're not
Okay.
rankings, they're, yeah. Chief Staff Sanders.
If you go back one slide,
Or to the goal area one.
goal area one, yeah.
Isn't it international student organization?
Oh,
Okay, so
it
not
says
internal.
internal.
Yeah, just making sure we don't have a club.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Any other questions? All right. Goal 2, improve student involvement. Maintain strong relationship with Hobson Memorial Union and the Campus Activities Board. Create an incentive program to increase student participation. We already covered that. Encourage student organizations to track student attendance. Already covered. Create a student senate subcommittee dedicated to student involvement. Also covered. Create campaigns to boost the school spirit of general student population. Maintain a strong relationship with SAFAC. Chief Staff Sanders.
I may suggest that we have Campus Activity Board, CAB. I believe that we should do the same thing with HMU as well as SAFAC.
You're right. All right. Any other questions? Goal 3, address student wellness. Have a constant representative in the Dining Services Committee, student outreach to get specific feedback on food quality. So first of all, having a constant representative, this basically goes back to one of the major concerns, the quality of food in the dining services, so that we can improve that. Student outreach to get specific feedback on food quality, again, ties to the same thing. Address food insecurity among students and explore ways to establish a food shelf on campus. Pretty much self-explanatory. Improve mental health support on campus, actively promote the available on or off-campus resources so that most students have immediate access to mental health support. Explore the possibility of sexual health and hygiene product dispensers in the academic buildings or the Hobson Memorial Union. Oh, Chief Staff Sanders.
I would like to suggest on the first bullet point, instead of have a constant representative, have a standing representative.
Right. Chair Newby.
For the last bullet point, hygiene product dispensers in academic buildings and or the Hobson Memorial.
Great. All right. Next slide is goal 4. Establish a student transit or alternative transportation program. So this one's something that I added a few things here myself because I have had the experience of actually exploring this program throughout the year, and except for one part where I think it was brought up by one of the cabinet members last year when we actually passed a bill in Student Senate last academic year to start a student transit program at BSU. The bill got passed in Senate, but we didn't. The president didn't sign it because obviously we don't have the resources to have such a program. With that, we started exploring other ways this year, and this is what I found, is we should explore an affordable car share program, which we did, but it resulted in we need to get subsidized. We need to have the program be subsidized, partly subsidized by the university. So it's still an option, but then again, the next administration would have to explore it further, explore a weekly ride assistance program. This was an idea by Senator Thapa, using BSU vehicles, which may focus on the needs of the international students, as many of them might not have driver licenses. We also tried that route, had some conversations here and there, but we couldn't do the necessary student surveys required, and we didn't want to write a bill that is not well informed. So again, another thing that the next administration can explore even further, and then survey the students to find the most suitable transit routes, transit hours and routes. Contact Paul Bunyan Transit to explore a discount deal and change of their schedule and route depending on the survey results. So this came up with multiple conversations with different people. And one of the candidates for vice president for student success, I think that's right, from Central Washington was telling us that in their school, the Student Senate actually partnered with the city, and the city subsidized half of the transit program, and that's a possibility. So even though that is a possibility, our city has Paul Bunyan Transit, and we've actually never looked into Paul Bunyan Transit and what they can do for us. So that would be one way to do it. If we can give them, this many students will use your services at this hour if you take this route, then I'm sure a deal could be struck. So, Chair Nick Brown.
There's an exit for the driver's license.
Where?
Second below. Driver's license. Like,
Oh.
drivers, yeah.
Driver's license. Okay, Senator Martin.
Since it's plural, it's them, it would be.
No, it's fine. So should it be licenses?
Just be a
Yes.
driver's license.
A driver's
Not have a driver's license. Or license.
Good? Okay. Officer Manager Peralta.
If we already have a discount with the public transit, does it matter?
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
We, BSU students and RTC students, they already get a discount with public insurance.
I know, it's just that they don't have the hours or the routes that we mostly require or use, so that would be a deal that we would propose and would be dependent on the surveys, obviously. Chief Staff Sanders.
Have we not in Bemidji just gotten Lyft or Uber?
We got Lyft. Lyft had
So-
2 drivers
Is there-
last time I checked, which is 4 weeks ago, but I don't know if conditions have improved.
Okay.
The thing with those services is that, yeah, they're on when they want to be on. So if they don't want to be on that day.
Yeah, when I'm mentioning with that possibility is, you know, if we're going to be talking to Paul Bunyan Transit, is there a possibility to actually work with the Lyft or Lyft drivers themselves?
Well, Lyft is comparatively way more expensive.
Yeah.
It's almost like getting a cab,
Yeah.
especially in Bemidji.
Yeah.
Senator Suko.
And people can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure vehicles is not supposed to be capitalized after BSU.
You're right.
Just making sure.
All right. Any other thoughts on this? Moving on. Goal 5 is ensure affordability. First is to create a textbook affordability task force. We have been talking about it the whole year. We still haven't officially formed it, but we've been talking about it. Hopefully, in time, we will be able to form it this semester if we can. If not, then the next administration can follow through. Chair France.
I reached out to a ton of players in order to form this textbook affordability or task force.
Yeah.
One person got back to me. So not sure what other routes to take on that because everyone expresses interest in doing this, but then when it comes down to it, I can't get them together.
I've personally spoken to every single person on the list, and they're all interested. It's just we weren't able to come together at the table at a certain time, and maybe it was partly our fault. We didn't take it. We didn't take enough initiative to actually knock on the door and get them on the table. Chief of Staff Sanders.
The broad goal area 5 we have here, venture affordability, and then I'm read through the 3 points that we have, all have to do with textbooks. Was there anything else that we wanted to add when it came to affordability within this broad goal?
Well, the inputs that we received did not, because at that time, we've been talking about textbook affordability for a couple of years now, and that was like at the top of people's head. So people are always talking about OERs, always talking about textbook affordability. But the purpose of today's meeting is obviously to add things if we have things to add. So feel free to add things. Senator Henneberger.
So I believe I brought this up a few Senate meetings ago, right after I had talked with State Representative Matt Bliss. He said that he wanted us to start something along these lines so that we could talk to him about it. Maybe he could bring something up at the state level about this. So maybe put somewhere in there and communicate with State Representative Matt Bliss about legislation at the state level.
How long is he going to be the state representative?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. So what would you like to, where would you like to add this?
Maybe another bullet point.
Could you tell me the
Contact
sentence?
State Representative Matt Bliss about ideas for legislation for affordability at the state level.
Chief of Staff Sanders.
May I suggest a rewording of that to actively communicate with State Representative Matt Bliss regarding ideas or regarding legislation for affordability at the state level. Therefore, it would make us reliable to actually come up with the ideas and present those with him. So actively communicate with State Representative Matt Bliss regarding legislation.
Senator Martin.
May I suggest
Supervisor Johnson's point, and then discuss.
Yes, I think we are doing that. We're just like taking little suggestions while on the way. But obviously we're gonna come back again and go through everything. Chief of Staff Sanders, Chair Brown after that.
Just real quick, I think that actually going through each one of these goals, making suggestions as they are coming up, because these are the minor points of the goals, so that we can actually look at it. We kind of had an overview of what goals we're going to be looking at, so.
Chair Brown.
Maybe legislation for textbook affordability. This is like RIDE.
Oh,
Is this for?
whenever Representative
for
Bliss was
government.
talking to me, he said literally anything that deals with students paying.
Or something, it's like affordability, or like students' affordability. Along the lines of like, not just
College affordability?
Yes.
Okay. Great. So it says, create a textbook affordability task force. This could be made up of student senate and academic affairs chair, and one other student representative, the dean of students, the provost, the faculty senate president, the bookstore manager, and the vice president of finance and administration. I need my charger, yeah. And then it says, engage in grassroots advocacy on a state and federal level to support the Textbook Affordability Act. The Textbook Affordability Act actually was brought up in the early 90s, I believe, and it was recently brought up again. It was co-sponsored by Senator Smith, which is Senator Tina Smith, who got appointed by Governor Dayton in place of Senator Franken. I spoke to her chief of staff when I was in DC while we were lobbying. And basically, this is something that all the other student governments are working on currently and will be working on throughout the next couple of years to actually get legislative support. So having grassroots advocacy, when I say grassroots, it means not just writing a letter on social media or on our website, but actually calling them, writing them personal letters, going to them and meeting up with them. And we have opportunity to do that. Students United is investing more on state advocacy and federal advocacy for next year. So if the next administration and the administration after that could focus on these grassroots advocacy, that would be phenomenal. There were certain things which we would have liked more to do. We would have liked to do more advocacy work this year, but obviously we had a lot of structural reform and internal team building stuff that we had to do earlier in the year in order to create this team that we have, which would hopefully guide us to next year where we have more time to do these grassroots advocacy. Actively communicate with state representative, Matt Bliss, regarding legislation for college affordability at the state level, use our statewide student government connections to find out the type of incentive professors are receiving for open educational resources, OER. Senator Suka.
Because the way that this goal is titled is very broad, should we include the, because we just passed the bill on the technology fee, and having something about any committees that we have that are concerning student fees, which bottom line affects affordability, like something along, I don't know how to word it, something affecting like student fee committees that's not SACPAC, but like for the health fee and the technology fee and the green fee, I want to say. You know, like those type of fees that are not SACPAC for student organizations, but like the other fees, so something along the lines of being in communications with them. I know that we have to have representatives on them, but.
Yep. That's a good point. Senator Shakar.
I want to say is like for any sort of fee increase on campus, there has to be 51% student votes on that increase.
If it's more than 2%.
Okay, if it's more than 2%. Right. But I don't really see how putting that here would be super helpful because all the fees increases that do take place are very, very pertinent to our campus. Are very helpful to student benefits.
Senator Sukup, and actually I'll yield to Office Manager Peralta and come back to Senator Sukup.
I think really, it's important to have what she said and put things right. I feel like if we have student involvement in things, I mean, it's our money, our tuition, and even if it's 2% or 3%, it's a lot of money.
Senator Sukup.
Okay, thank you again, Office Manager Peralta. I was more directly trying to state that we should keep an eye on where the money is going and have feedback into those committees. Like, obviously, we're going to have those fees, but we should have something in there where Student Senate wants to make sure that it's going to the right places with those committees in mind.
Senator Shakar.
I feel like for a fee increase, it has to go through all those proper channels to start with for the fee increase. And I don't want to put a restriction or a ban on possible fee increases to make our campus better. Because I'm also paying those fees out of my pocket, along with all the other students. And these fee increases are only taking place when 51% of the students say yes to it, which means the students want it. So I don't want to put a ban or restriction on possible fee increases in the future to make our campus better. That's just me, but like, I see where you're coming from, Tony. I understand your point, and I see it's a financial issue. But I don't want to put a ban on that.
Chief Staff Sanders.
I agree with you, Senator Shakar, that we should not put a ban or a cap. But I believe what Senator Sukup was saying is that we need to have almost an open communication between all fee allocation committees and the Student Senate body. So that we can all kind of see where all of our money is going. So having that be a minor goal within this major goal of affordability, I think through having the knowledge of where our fees are going. So not having a ban or a cap, but having the knowledge of where our money is going to students. So you notice we have a constant representative in the all fee committees and keep fee increases in check.
Is that a good way to say it, or do you want me to
I would say
advocate for lower fees, or Advisor Johnson?
Well, just point of information. So currently, under our current university practice, the athletic fee, the student center for health and counseling, green fee, consult through the student activity fee allocation committee. So they're consulting there, and then SACPAC brings forward that information to you in their annual presentation. And then Karen is also sharing that in that tuition consultation. So just point of information that that's our current practice, that there is some consultation happening. Not that I think that precludes us from wanting more, but want to clarify. And then the 2%, the limit on 2%, that would be it's referring to is just specifically the student activity. Where do you need that campus referendum to go about 2%? I yield.
Thank you, Advisor Johnson. Any other? Does that sound good, Chief of Staff Sanders?
I like where this is going. Your last bullet point, I would have a standing representative in all fee committees.
I meant to write standing. I don't know why I wrote constant.
With eight.
Yep.
And then, and closely monitor any fee increases. I would add on to that, closely monitor any fee increases through communication with fee committees. With that, I yield.
Thank you. All right, any other thoughts on this page, slide? Okay, moving on. Bridge the gap between the student senate and the student body. First off is create a tradition of assigning student senators to attend different student organization meetings at the beginning of the year. We kind of did that this year, but hopefully next administration would do a better job. Host bi-weekly or once a month student advocacy forums to reach out to regular students about their concerns and to get their inputs on legislations on the Senate floor. When it says Senate, it means student Senate. Not to be confused with the state Senate or the Congress in Washington. So provide PR support to student organizations and their event. This was something that was brought up again towards the end of last academic year, but it wasn't really acted upon until this year. We did a little bit of it, thanks to Chair Brown. So when other student organizations, they're hosting events that affect a bigger population of students, big events like Festival of Nation, big events that CAB hosts like Sunsplash and all that, great events, as well as Geek Club hosted this fundraiser. So if we can promote those type of events, that would eventually build a good relationship of Student Senate with these organizations, because obviously our social media, we have a lot of outreach to regular people in the Bemidji community and also students, former students, current students. Chair Brown.
I have a PR people like public relations support. Just HMU.
So then it would be. Would this be capital P?
The names.
Okay. Provide public relations support to student organizations and their event. Maintain a constant social media presence and promote the Student Senate initiatives online. One of the things that was brought up, this was actually one of the first things when we started the strategic plan, is a lot of things that Student Senate does, students don't know about it. They don't know what we're doing to help them and how we positively or negatively affecting their lives and the legislation that we're passing, which eventually ties it back to the disconnect that we have. I would like to think that we worked on it a little bit this year. We have improved. We've heard good things, but obviously we have a long way to go and we need to do a better job. So this would just be like the things that we have been doing this year: promoting affirmative consent, promoting the Statement of Prosper Act, the DACA statement, and our student advocacy that we've been doing on a state and federal level. All those posts, all those, including our presidential debate, which received so many views, about 1,700 views, which is amazing. So if we can keep doing these things, people will notice Student Senate's activities and the initiatives that we do, and hopefully we'll form a better image in their minds. Address the student body in person or via live telecast once a month. This is primarily for the student body president. As you can tell, this was added by me. This is something that I have been doing this year. We didn't start it right away, but I started this in January, and since then we've been addressing the student body through KBSU television during our State of the Student Body address. Basically, the president updates the students what the Senate has been working on and how it's affecting student lives and the student body in general. Any thoughts on this, Chief of Staff Sanders?
Got lots of thoughts. if we're gonna add the live telecast once a month, would it be beneficial to also add the live stream that we have of our Senate meetings to make sure that that is continued?
Yeah. Senator Sukup.
Live streaming is one word.
Thank you. Should I say live stream of Student Senate or live streaming of Student Senate meeting?
Continuing the live stream, student senate meetings.
Continue live stream of student senate meetings.
Continue student senate live stream, or meeting live stream.
Okay, we're
Potato,
just gonna stick
potato.
with that.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's organic.
Okay, any other thoughts on this page? Jeremy, you look like you have something to say. No? Okay. All right, so now that we have reviewed all of it, let's start from the top. Chief of Staff Sanders.
May I suggest, instead of starting from the top and going over it, asking if there's any other suggestions that have not been covered?
Yes.
For the sake of time.
Any other suggestions that have not been covered? Chair Brown.
To keep in mind, can we, somewhere in here to add communication with like city officials?
Say it again, please.
Somewhere in here to add communication with city officials, whether
Right.
we like put that to a specific chair or a certain senator or something, like city hall meetings section.
It could be student involvement.
Sounds like the right place to put it.
Attend monthly city hall meetings.
Is that the city hall meeting or the town hall meeting? What's it called?
Councils.
City council meetings.
Okay, there we go.
As,
One of the appropriate names, yeah.
bi-monthly, twice a month.
Right. The Chair Chief of Staff Sanders.
How is this going to improve student involvement? I understand that it is important and that it is something that we as the Student Senate should do, but how is this going to actually improve the student body itself? I believe that this is a very important point. However, I don't believe it should be in our strategic goals.
Okay. I personally disagree, but I'll let everyone start giving their thoughts. Senator Sukup.
I don't know. I agree. I half agree with you, and I half agree here. It's kind of a split where it should be included, but also it could not be included. I'm just wondering if whether or not it should be underneath daily life, student daily life, because some things that affect the city, like parking, like housing regulations and stuff, affects daily lives of students, and so it maybe should be put.
Well,
under-
those are concerns of daily lives. These are goals that are meant to improve those or address those concerns. You see what I'm saying? So the daily lives are the concerns of their daily lives. And then these goals are trying to address those concerns. Chief of Staff Sanders.
Could you go to the slide with goals, with the 6 goals actually on there so we can
Yes.
see? Thank you.
Office Manager Peralta.
I'm confused as to why goes to the student, I mean, the student council meetings as well. Like how would.
I can answer that question, but I see a couple of hands here. So Senator Shakar first, followed by Chair Brown, then
I
Senator.
think we're in discussion on the issue for 5 minutes.
There is a motion to limit discussion to 5 minutes. Is there a second? Seconded by Chief of Staff Sanders. Is there dissent to limit the discussion? There is dissent, so I will have to take a vote. Everyone in favor of limiting discussion to 5 minutes, please signify by raising your right hand. Okay. Everyone opposed? Abstain? Okay. 7, 1. Motion passes. The motion has passed, but we're still in discussion with the strategic plan. You can still address a point if you want, Chair Friends.
I believe that when the strategic plan, it took us over the course of 3 weeks to develop this, and we're trying to finish this and fix this how we want it now in one meeting. I understand the need to limit discussion, but if this is something that we want standing for future leaderships and administration, we do need to give this the time it deserves.
Chief of Staff Sanders.
I believe the limit of discussion was for where to put the point we're working with now and not the actual,
Yeah.
the whole broad overview for point of information.
Chair Brown.
I think we need to keep in contact with city officials. We have Councilman Wheelhouse who comes here once a month to kind of give like his updates. I feel like we should go there too as well to give our updates. I know he comes here and like hears them too, but even just how like the housing regulations and parking and stuff like that, we can't. Not everything that we're trying to accomplish can be accomplished just at the university level. We also need to incorporate it with the city level as well.
Senator Endenberger.
Also, to go along with that, there's actually, they have it on their agenda. If there's any student senators present, that they have a time specifically set aside where we can go up and tell them what the student senate is talking about, if there's any student concerns. If I remember correctly, my first year here 2 years ago, there was an ordinance where like a city ordinance where you couldn't skateboard or anything like that. And that got brought up enough, I believe. It was a student senator, I might be wrong, that actually brought it to the city council. So like, hey, students use skateboards whenever it's nice outside to travel through campus. They're getting in trouble for it. So it does help.
Chair Newby.
Regardless of whether we want it on our strategic plan or not, I don't think it belongs as one of our 6 broad goals. I think we want this point in there. We're gonna have to put it in the Senate slide, one that directly impacts us and our organization, whether it's one of the internal slides, one of the goals of Senate. I don't think it belongs on these 6. Like internal concerns, or I think possibly the last slide, if I remember correctly, is where this belongs, regardless if we want it in here or not.
Can you just click the slide that it is on?
Yes.
It's currently here, Chief of Staff Sanders.
I agree with Chair Newby that it should be, and if it's going to be on this, it should be internal. That, or we should change one of our goal 6 to involvement with the student senate, student body, and the community. So just adding that to include on our goal area 6. Either one of those, I believe, would be beneficial for this goal to be in.
I do have an idea, but I'll let Senator Sukup speak first.
There's that idea, and then I have the idea of possibly altering 4, just the tiniest bit, saying and student life, like establish or and improve student life on goal area 4. Because once we establish in the next 4 years, if we establish that, it could be, these could necessarily be goals that are just digital.
Great. Senator Shakar.
I was also wondering if the parking issue does it fall into wellness? Enhancing parking opportunities for both on-campus and off-campus students. I know this is a very, very big issue right now.
Okay, one at a time, please. Let's figure this out first. So improve relationship between student senate and the student body. Chief of Staff Sanders, go ahead.
I would suggest if we're going to change that one, improve relationships between the student senate, comma, the student body, comma, and the Bemidji community, and the community.
Okay. So goal 6. Senator Enneberger?
We'll have to update the title on that.
Yep,
That's
exactly what
fine.
I'm doing. Okay, so we have that in here, problem solved. Any other things to add related to city council's relationship or, okay. So before we move on to the next addition, Senator Shakar proposed adding the parking problem. So Senator Shakar, I would yield to you. Can you tell us what would you like to add? And then we can decide where.
Enhance parking opportunities around campus or on campus for students living on campus.
Or would you say address parking problems? Senator Martin?
Like, regarding that, maybe like, okay, like, because obviously we can't like enhance ourselves, like parking spaces, we can advocate for more parking opportunities for students.
Advocate for better parking opportunities?
Or more parking opportunities. Yeah.
Chief Staff Sanders.
I also suggest if we're gonna do that, that we put affordable, because I believe part of the reason why Banksburg is half empty is it's almost $200 for a parking pass. Yeah, and that's one of the cheapest ones. So I believe if we're gonna put this on our strategic plan, we need to put, advocate for more and affordable.
Can you suggest another word beside more?
Or increased. An
And then we're
increase in
saying-
parking,
Okay,
increase in availability of parking.
So availability and affordability of parking.
Yes.
say it again, please.
An increase for affordability and availability of parking.
Great. And it falls under ensuring affordability, which is great. Now, any other concerns that have not been addressed yet? I had Senator Martin before Senator Enneberger, so I'll yield to Senator Martin, please.
I think it's under all for the students. Just how important, you know, it deals with events.
Oh, should be involvement then. Or this one?
Well, there was just a wording, it might be, I think it's later on, but, it says like, to get like students more involved, or stay on campus during the weekends or something like that. because of
Oh,
the lack of
right.
events.
There,
I think stuff like this. That counts.
I think it's in the concerns area. Exposure to underage drinking partly due to lack of weekend activities on campus. Is that what you're talking about?
I don't think there's like a lack of activities. And I also think that like, should be addressed with funding for events. Because the reason why events aren't as lively or happy or, you know, students are going to these events because they're not big enough and because there's not funding for them. And I don't think there's a lack of weekend event, like activities, but yeah, sorry.
Point noted. I'll have to hear the speakers on the list. Senator Haynes.
They just canceled Free for Creator, so that's something that was happening Friday and Saturday every single weekend, so.
It happened because of funding.
Right,
And-
but there will be less. is what
Right,
you're saying.
yeah. So it does relate to funding, totally agreed. But because of that, there might be a lack of events. But again, I want to hear everybody's thoughts, so Senator Rapp, please.
You could just say, firstly, due to the lack of quality of weekend activities? If that's kind of what you're kind of more pushing towards?
I don't know, because originally when it was brought up, it was said that they want more weekend activities on campus, and some students go outside and get engaged in all these activities because they don't have stuff to do on campus. It might or might not be true, but it was a concern that was brought up to us. Senator Martin.
I don't think the exposure to underage drinking is because of the lack of on-campus activities and events. I think it's due because of societal norms and such like that. I don't think it's because.
It does say partly though. Yeah.
But
I see what you're coming from too. Chief of Staff Sanders.
Coming from a person who's attended multiple universities, including a large one, if there are not quality activities on the weekends, as well as the attendance is low, you are going to have an increase in underage drinking due to people want to go out and socialize. So I believe that this is a good point. I believe that we should probably put something along the lines of partially due to the lack of involvement or the lack of the broad range. I mean, we had the movies, but what else did we really have? I mean, how many times can we go and watch a movie? And having interaction, I think, is really what we need to state, whether that be like dances or something that, you know, is where the students can interact with each other instead of just sitting and watching.
did not know the idea. And I know, I'm not aware that there are people who are not as well.
Chief of Staff Sanders.
I agree with you, and I believe that that is covered underneath one of goal area 5 or goal area 6 when we state that we need to be active on our social media and promote there as well.
Iterate that since we're talking about the lack of weekend activity, or in the future, to do that. Reiteration of how it's better.
So the goal area, which goal area do you think we should add something related to that?
No, I the one that we were just on, but
That's the concern. So the goals are addressing the concern. So here are our major concerns in students' daily lives, internal concerns, then our 6 broad goals. These goals are addressing those concerns. Again, that's a concern. It's already addressed in the daily lives concerns. Chief of Staff Sanders.
I believe that since we have separated the 2 points we were previously discussing, we need to change the verbiage on exposure to underage drinking. Maybe to the effect of exposure of minors to underage drinking or something along those lines.
Underage drinking is minors.
Well, but it's the way it's worded right now is exposure to underage drinking means that like I who am of legal age, okay, that's a minor, they're drinking. I'm exposed to that. So
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. It could be the exposure of minors to
How about just underage
alcohol
drinking?
consumption. Yeah, underage drinking also would work.
Okay. Senator Enberger.
This is the whole new thing to add on.
Yeah.
This isn't what we were just talking about. Under point 6, the last one. Go down to it.
You mean point 6 on this page?
No,
Goal 6.
Goal 6, sorry. Encouraging students to vote in federal, state, and local elections in 2018 and 2020, and any special elections.
Encouraging students to vote in
federal, state, and local elections.
we just put elections.
And any special elections.
Would we be able to say all elections?
Well, it doesn't, when we say just elections, it might just mean student senate elections. Wait, what? Well, yeah, when we are saying all elections, it's important to specify so that future leadership has specific direction. Vote in local, state, and federal elections and any special elections during 2018, 2020.
Yeah.
Senator Shuko.
And this would be personally, I would like to add on to that while remaining impartial. I know that we're supposed to, but it would be important that we have to, but it would be important that when we're doing that, we have to remain impartial while doing it. So.
Well, that's in our constitution. We cannot have any political affiliation. That's a given, 100%. We can never advocate vote for Republicans or vote for Democrats. We can never do that. Senator Martin.
I just have a question. Encouraging students to vote, wouldn't that technically fall under student involvement instead of improving our relationship with students?
Fair point. I agree with you. I have Senator Haynes next.
You shouldn't have a period at the end of your bullet point.
Thank you. Where is the part? Okay. Chief of Staff Sanders.
I would also like to suggest to remove the dates on this, therefore it can be utilized in the future. If the strategic plan is something that the next student body committee here would like to continue with.
Well, we could do elections during election years.
It's fine. We'll just keep it any special election.
Yeah, the special elections like some.
That's it. Yeah.
Have in 2019.
Anyway, so just because we're already, it's 6:26, so let's keep this discussion moving, and let's keep our thoughts related to the big picture impact of this strategic plan. So let's talk about any other concerns that were not addressed so far. Okay, so we have our concerns. We've talked about them a couple of times. 6 broad goals. Any problem with the goals? Any concerns? Additions? Chief of Staff Sanders.
I'd like to call the question.
Call the question by Chief of Staff Sanders. Is there a second? Seconded by Senator Shekar. Discussion on call to question. Seeing none, is there dissent to call to question? Before I actually go through with the motion, you're calling the question to approve the strategic plan? Is that what it is?
Apologize, I called the question to approve the strategic plan laid out for us.
Okay, Senator Shekar still seconds it. Is there a dissent to call the question on approving the strategic plan 2018 to 2020? Seeing none, call the question passes. Now we're gonna have to vote. So do we have ballots over there? Vice President Stockler left, so we will have to do.
Paper's already being read.
It's already done.
I think we have enough here. I'm just quite like that. Quick like that.
No, I got to.
There we go.
Okay, just write down whether you're in favor, you're opposed, or you're abstaining. A unanimous yes would be preferable to show all our support, but by no means trying to influence your vote. I'm just saying that.
You cannot tell them how to vote.
No, I'm not saying that. That's exactly what I'm saying. That I'm not trying to influence your votes. What I'm saying is, when we have a strategic plan, I would prefer everybody to be on board, otherwise we don't pass it at all. So vote your conscience and like 100% vote no if you want to vote no. Just don't agree because you have to agree.
I didn't vote because I was not here for the entirety.
So you're abstaining.
Not really. I didn't vote at all.
That's what it's essentially. Well, you can't be helping, or you can, because the vice president does. Wow. Okay, so votes are in. It's 11 yes, 0 opposed, 3 abstain. With that, the strategic plan passes. Again, I wasn't trying to influence your votes. I was just, I said it in a very inappropriate way. I apologize. I was just trying to say that a strategic plan should be either passed by everybody or not passed at all, is what I was trying to say. But seems like people are either in agreement or we're not here. Maybe there's, at least there's no disagreement. So, which means we didn't fail entirely. So, with that, we'll get back over to moving to reports, cabinet reports. Chair Friends.
Me and Amanda and I, met with Career Services to talk about the focus assessment, some other things like that. Academic Affairs will be teaming up with Campus Affairs in order to increase student involvement in certain areas around campus, such as career services and things like that. If we do not work on it, we will be leaving it in our transition reports for the next leadership.
Great. Any questions for Chair Friends? Any other cabinet reports? Chair Newby.
Feeder points, auctions pretty much all set up. Prizes sent to Josie to get purchased here. Me and Josie be working on that. We talked to them today. Yeah, we had a nice long meeting. Talked with CAB about volunteers. Right now, I think I have a list of 8 volunteers, including me. I have like about 10 to 12. So come talk to me if you're interested. I'll get you on the list. And what Sam said, working together. I counted you on it. You're okay. Yes.
Any questions for Chair Newby? Right. Cabinet reports. Chief of Staff Sanders.
Well, we still have to meet, legislative committee still has to meet. If anyone wants to get involved in that, it has to be done by like 11 o'clock tomorrow. I finally got the policies that I needed to review. So if you'd like to be part of that review, please message me on Teams and I will share it with you. And you can share your feedback with me by 11 a.m. tomorrow.
It's going to be like a homework type deal where you review it tonight and then you give your feedback to Chief of Staff Sanders by tomorrow morning. Any takers? All right. Senator Martin.
Oh, no. Message me on Teams. Yep.
Great. Any other cabinet reports? Chair Brown.
So elections have started. I really hope everyone here has voted already. They go until, I believe it's the 20th.
Technically, it's Sunday at 12:15 a.m.
Yeah,
This has
because
been adjusted to 11:59. So we have
Right. Let's just tell people Saturday around midnight.
Yeah, so
very short.
I mean, it is. Yeah, it is 12:15. But I'm just saying, for the ease of saying it.
and it's publicized as 11:59, the 21st. So we just gonna keep it that way. they'll let us know labels. We said we'll start building, planning to finish next week on those couple days where we don't have class. And yeah, just get the word out about voting. We're already potentially gonna break the record by vote count, so. So keep voting, tell people
Do you have a target, Chair Brown?
to be last year's. We want to set the long-term goal, which is 420, 470.
427.
27.
Yeah.
So 428 is our goal, and above and beyond.
Cool. I would like to see at least 500. I'm just throwing out my opinion out there. Hopefully we'll meet that. Thanks for everyone who tabled at the voting booths. And please keep tabling. We still have a few days, a few school days of voting. And I'll yield back to Chair Brown.
Just thanks to all those who attended the debate. We have a lot of people who have watched it online, 1.700 people, and then plus people who were there, so got a lot of views. So, growing and influences people's systems. Thank you to those who helped set up and carry out everything.
Great.
I yield.
Thank you. Any questions for Chair Brown? Any other cabinet reports? Okay. I have little something to add. Is next meeting, as you said, as you all know, that it's going to be a lot of traditions. We're not going to have an actual agenda, new business item. We might if something urgent comes up, but otherwise we won't. It's just going to be a lot of farewell speeches, introducing the new president, whoever it might be, and handing over the gavel. Something that we're doing this year is we're giving out certificate of service to each one of you, every one of our Senate members, to appreciate your service this year, serving the student body at Bemidji State University. And so we're going to be handing those out at that date, so that is an incentive for you to come to that meeting. And so please show up. We might actually take some pictures as well, end of the year and last day of Senate picture. So please dress up appropriately, and please tell your fellow senators to come as well. With that, we're going to move on to, do you have questions for me? Senator Ellenberger?
What day was that?
Right, that's something I should mention. You're right, thank you. Chief of Staff Sanders, I yield to you.
So those of you that actually filled out the doodle poll, thank you. It was on Teams, I made sure of it. We had decided that everyone is available, most everyone. There was one person that was not, that had filled out the doodle poll at 1 p.m. on the 26th. 1 p.m. on the 26th of April. You need to know the month. So.
26th is a Thursday, 1 p.m. There's no classes, so it's in the Craig Wolf room. So any questions related to that? Can I see a quick show of hands who's not coming to the meeting? Thank you, Office Manager Trell, thank you about that. Great. I expect all of you to be here on the 26th. Moving on to University Committee reports. Any University Committee reports? Seeing none, moving on to student organization update.
Met with CAB, and they want us to get involved more with us next year and work alongside us with us.
Perfect. Thank you. Senator Thop.
Dr. John is taking applications for new international students organization, executive members for next year, and then there will be elections on next Wednesday starting 6 p.m. in the University. And there's some application forms in the same office. And in the past years, not always international students have been a member of ISO, so if anyone's interested, just putting it out there.
Thank you, Mr. DeFalco. Any other student organization updates? Seeing none, moving on to advisory.
Well, thanks everybody for participating. We accepted the leadership celebration.
Yes, I can actually, or if you want to share, you can.
No, you do.
Okay, so the leadership celebration last Tuesday at 5 p.m. We had the opportunity to speak. I had the opportunity to speak along with Dr. Grant, welcoming all the students. And then we also had the opportunity to hand out any awards that we have within our organization. And obviously at Student Senate, we have 2 traditional awards, the Presidential Award and the Meritorious Service Award. Each year, usually there's 1 recipient for the Presidential Award and 2 recipients for the Meritorious Service Awards, even though they might have done it differently last year, but this year we stayed constant with the tradition. So this year's Presidential Service Award Presidential Award recipient was Chief of Staff Sanders. So, and there were 2 recipients for the Meritorious Service Award. First is our Campus Affairs Chair, Newton. And our Public Relations Chair, Chair Brown. And then there were other organizations, obviously, they had their own awards, and I'll yield to Vice Johnson.
Yeah, so the International Student Organization won the Outstanding Student Organization of the Year. The event of the year was the Council of Union Students Powwow, traditional event. The advisor of the year was Angie Kapoor for the American Marketing Association Student Group. And student leader.
I have a question about that. They're co-advisors. Why just one?
It was based on student nominations. So we depended on student nominations to come forward.
Some of their creation of it.
So that's what was awarded last night. And then there's also student leader, outstanding student leader, which was our own
Mercy Van Bergen.
Yeah. So please congratulate her since she's part of our community.
We can have a round of applause for her.
The only other piece I want to throw tonight, we've got advising and registration days on Friday. I'm looking for a couple of student leaders to serve on our student panel that we do for the parents from 1 to 2 p.m. So if you're available Friday from 1 to 2, we'll be willing to serve on student panel if that is taken.
Is it just this Friday or is it next Friday?
The next 2 Fridays,
as
but
well?
I'm really this Friday. Not gonna lie. Anybody available? 1 to 2? Pretty low beach. It's cool.
Also put on there that we should choose 3, or is it from 1 to 2?
It is from 2 to 3, but I've got enough people. Okay, so I'm just looking for 1 or 2 more. All right, thank you. That's it.
Great.
Thanks for all your great work.
Thank you, Advisor Johnson. And I would suggest we should nominate Advisor Johnson next year. We forgot to do that this year. I'm sorry.
I'm a PhD here. Now I'm volunteer.
Moving on to other reports. Any other reports? Right, moving on to points for the good of the order. Senator Rapp.
We just need more people for pictures for like our textbook affordability thing, which we united. So if you spent any money on textbooks, just write down on a piece of paper what you could have spent it on, and let's take a picture so we can keep doing that stuff. So we just need all participants.
Thank you. Chief Staff Senator.
Just as a suggestion, we've got whiteboards right here. I know we don't have the paper, but whiteboards right here after meeting.
Right.
yield.
Senator Sugo.
Monday night, facility, Dr. Kappa, I hand out all of the wristbands to all the girls and we take a photo. And as far as I know so far, someone in Nevada, Las Vegas, Nevada, shared our post. Shared the post with the hashtag and with everything on it. Yeah, so it's, and we've received a lot of positive feedback from it. Just wanted to let you guys know that Ask for My Yes has been shared across the country.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for the update, and I did see that, and we also.
Yeah, I commented.
Yeah, we also gave a little shout out to Delta Beta Kappa on our student center page. Yeah, we did. Senator Annenberger?
Tomorrow is Take Back the Night. And it starts at 6 p.m. at the John Glass Fieldhouse, and they're going to be going over to where our fire pit is, right next to the lake, in which they're going to be doing like a burning ceremony. And it's for, it's in support of, since April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And I believe it's sponsored by Support Within Reach.
Yes, it's a very important event, and since we have been supporting affirmative consent and sexual awareness throughout this month, we should attend that event. So please, as many of you can, please come and join us at 6 p.m. tomorrow. Senator Shuko.
And then to what Senator Bortz would most likely want me to relay is that the second oldest event on campus is happening this weekend. The X Follies is happening Thursday the 19th, Friday the 20th, and Saturday the 21st. They all have one at 7 p.m. and then Saturday there's also another showing at 2 p.m. and it's free for students, $5 for seniors, alumni, and children, and $10 for general admission as adults. It's second oldest, it's Dance Folly, so a bunch of organizations on campus, meaning like the dance team, the cheer team, and the ballroom.
The swing team?
Ballroom and swing. Dance, and also some members of the community. It's 72 years old, I want to say. So, that was one of our oldest.
Chair Brown.
Where is this taking place?
Also the John Glass Fieldhouse.
Okay.
At 7 p.m. So you could maybe start your walk with the, if you wanted to do it all on the same night, depending on what you have, you could start it out with the Support Within Reach and the Take Back the Night, go all the way to the thing, and then if you want to come back for that, you could.
Interesting.
I'm sure you all do that if I'm not sick. Senator Shakar.
Okay, so this to the House and body, especially Mr. Hua. I strongly believe that this meeting could have gone a lot more efficiently, and this meeting could have been a lot more productive. I love talking about all the issues that we talked about, but I want to tell my student senate to avoid repetition during the next meetings and just talk about a lot of those issues that could be addressed in the group chat and figure it out easily, and so that we don't waste time and get the meeting done by that amount of time. Because I strongly believe we could have done that in 2 hours. There was a lot of meetings today. All we did, and yeah,
Point noted. Senator Haynes.
Totally different note. Stride into Spring is this Saturday. If you want to run, that's great. Also, I'm going to talk really fast. Arts of the Earth Festival is this Sunday. If you're not doing anything, 12:30 to 3:30, please come. Also, we need volunteers. And I think maybe this could count for volunteer hours. It's going to be really super easy. We just need people standing by the silent auction, making sure that items aren't being like taken, just supervision, and we need people like wiping tables. And I can't leave this in the student senate office because it has to go back to the sustainability office, so we could like pass it around to the senate right now.
Sure. Chief of Staff Sanders.
There are a lot of events that are going on and I love it. I really think that we should all post this on Teams, so those people that were not able to attend the meeting or did not write it down or may forget it, let's post everything on Teams. That is yes.
All right. Any other points for the good of the order? Senator Annenberger.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, seconded by Senator Shakar. Any dissent to adjourn the meeting? Seeing none, meeting adjourned at 6.